okay, as they're deporting someone for exercising free speech, you're definitely creating a lot of resentment. Jews should be the first people to recognize how dangerous that kind of association is. It is shocking how short-sighted Zionist Jews are in this country. It is literally like it is so alarming that they don't. President, until it reaches a real point, okay, and until they shed themselves of their reactionary tendencies, and it reaches a real point of momentum when there's like actually people. You just want me to talk about your splinter Discord, okay? And I'm not going to do that. It's the same reason why I don't talk about like Baba Vakian all the time, or whatever bastion of new Larishites that exist. I don't care about your 30-person splinter Discord. You are from our blood report about Turkey. You born in this land, and is your content already come on? But I don't know why people think I haven't talked about Recep Tayyip Erdogan arresting Imamoglu. I did. I talked about it extensively, and I will cover it. I will cover it again. Where is this coming from? Like, people think that I haven't been talking about this issue. There's also people that come in here and they're like, why don't you even post on Instagram? I have as well. What the f***?
And Trump is ramping up attacks against the federal judge at the center of a deportation standoff with his administration in a contentious.
It's a bourgeois duopoly, guys. Supports Bernie and AOC Glaze Kamala. Why are you upset and can't openly admit what you want me to say? Why are you making up a bunch of shit they didn't say? It's a bourgeois duopoly, guys. Supports Bernie and AOC and Glaze Kamala. Glaze Kamala is very funny. I like that you said, why are you making up a bunch of shit they didn't say? And then openly recognize a thing that I did say that you seemingly agree with, and then follow that up with like just the things that I've never said. Come on, man. Come on. Say what you mean. What do you want? Who do you want me to support? Just be open about it. Hasan, watch out. All 30 Discorders are attacking people. Yeah. I am the Schrodinger's political commentator who is both all powerful and has no motion at the same time, because like I have the capacity to make political campaigns or break them. I also didn't sufficiently. I didn't support Kamala Harris and secretly wanted Trump to win, but I also simultaneously glazed Kamala Harris and really loved Kamala Harris, and am a phony person who just wants to sheepdog people back into the Democratic Party. At a certain point, you will realize that I'm just a fucking Twitch streamer. Do I have a lot of influence? Absolutely. Okay? I do. I recognize that. I try to use it for good. And simply yelling at me is not actually engaging in revolutionary action. You're just a Twitch streamer. You're doing parasocial stan or hater behavior, but you're masquerading it as like revolutionary thought, which is insanely... It's even funnier than people who are just like, no, I really have a parasocial relationship with the streamer and I love him, or hate me on other virtues. You don't have to like try to what? If you want to vote for PSL or some other openly communist parties, not class enemies Democrats. I'm sorry, did I tell people not to vote PSL? I mean, I think that they're great at political activism. Their election strategy leaves much to, their election strategies are not great. But having said that, the only group that I actively came after was Jill Stein and the Green Party. And the reason for why I did that wasn't because... The reason for why I did that is because I just don't believe that they're serious. They're not.
Just hearing yesterday, Judge James Boasberg accused the Trump administration of disrespecting the court and ignoring orders after they deported suspected Venezuelan gang members last week. Boasberg is still considering whether their use of the wartime alien enemy's power is legal. But
what? We have infinitely more influence in having conversations with our community members than you do, simply by virtue of them being our neighbors, friends, and families. I love the work that you do, but chatters can recognize their influence too. I agree. That's what I try to explain to people all the time. That like, if you think you're behaving if you think personally that you are engaging in revolutionary acts and doing praxis by simply watching my broadcast, you're delusional. It would be meaningless if that's what I thought was the path for change is just like, if you watch enough of my broadcast, if you subscribe to me hard enough, that real socialism will be implemented in this country. I've never said that. I think it's fucking idiotic. That's why I always remind people that without all of you going out, talking to other people, trying to instill class consciousness amongst your friends, amongst your neighbors, without all of you going out and engaging in community organizing, engaging in direct action, engaging in protest, and trying to expand class consciousness, and simultaneously unionize your workforce, joining PSL or DSA or many other organizations like that. Without doing all of that, if you don't do any of that, then yeah, this is meaningless. What do I always say? In spite of all of the insanity, the reason why I think this is incredibly worthwhile is because you're doing all of that. That's what keeps me going. And there are a ton of people in this community that have actually went out and won local office, that have actually become community organizers. That's why whenever I link up with, activist groups like Water Drop LA, the dudes that are there, they're HasanAbi heads. When I go to the Bernie rally, the same thing. When I go talk to labor unions, the same thing. That's it. That's why I do what I do. That's why I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, because I think I have to the best of my ability, a decent opportunity to change people's minds. That's how it goes. That's where this is.
Ban against such deportations remains in effect for another week. The president is spending part of the weekend at his private club in Bedminster, New Jersey. Nicole Skanga is in Bridgewater. Nicole, good morning.
Good morning, Meg. The president starts his day here in New Jersey before heading to Philadelphia to watch the NCAA Wrestling Championships. But as you mentioned, a very different face-off took place in a courtroom yesterday as a federal judge voiced skepticism over the Trump administration's use of that wartime power.
A grilling from the federal bench, the latest chapter in a high-profile showdown between the president and the judiciary, following the deportation of 200-plus Venezuelan nationals, including suspected gang members, to a high-security prison in El Salvador.
They're bad people. We don't want them in our country. We can't let a judge say that he wants them. He didn't run for president. He didn't get much more than 80 million votes. And we just can't let that happen.
Presiding over the landmark case, federal judge James Boasberg. In court yesterday, the federal judge rebuked the administration for ignoring his order to turn the planes around 1 week ago, mid-flight, until he could review their cases, and accused Deputy Assistant Attorney General Drew Ensign of using disrespectful language and missing deadlines. Did you not understand? Boasberg asked the lawyer for the Justice Department. Advanced Democracy, a nonpartisan research nonprofit, found President Trump's made at least 34 posts referencing the judiciary in recent days, with at least 10 criticizing that limit his authority. Lawyers for some of those transferred to the high-security prison in El Salvador last weekend argued in court filings they weren't gang members at all, including the Venezuelan professional soccer goalie, Erce Reyes Barrios, who claims the U.S. government misinterpreted his soccer tattoo as a gang symbol, with no legal recourse before being transported to El Salvador.
The government actually just wants us and the American people to believe what it says without any process or any evidence at all.
Sky Perryman of Democracy Forward is co-counsel representing the plaintiffs in the case.
Are you concerned that there are individuals sitting in a high security prison in El Salvador right now that have been falsely accused of being TDA members?
We are deeply concerned about that. And this is something that should concern every single American in this country.
And in a separate move overnight, President Trump revoked the security clearances of former President Joe Biden, former Vice President Kamala Harris, and several former top administration officials, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, another former Secretary of State on that list, Hillary Clinton. Michelle?
Nicole, thank you.
Now to that late afternoon notice from the Trump administration to revoke the legal status of potentially more than 500,000.
Yeah, there's also this. 500,000 immigrants that got TPS under Biden, which was an extension of the Trump program as well, which is something that American government has done time and time again, is now being revoked. Cubans, Nicaraguans, Haitians, and the like. What is this? Hasan has literally said he shouldn't be the nexus of our organizing. He's just a newsman and stands on that. Some of Haas Twitter seems to confuse stand behavior with activism. It's not. Go find your local mutual aid group, PSL chapter, PSL branch, DSA chapter, and volunteer to help out. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Watching me is not activism. Okay. I'm only one person. And I do this. I do what I do because I think I'm good at it. And because I think I can urge others to also go out and join the fight. That's my impact. That's my momentum. I can only show you others who are also brilliant, like-minded people such as yourselves and other content creators, show you journalists and all this stuff. A lot of those ACP dudes infiltrated Hollywood too. I don't care. Those guys are just, they're making noise.
Immigrants currently living in the United States. This as we are learning more about the Venezuelans deported under the 18th century wartime law. I'm joined now by immigration reporter Camila Montoya Galvez to help us unravel all of this. First of all, Camila, let's start with 500,000. Remind us again what that program was supposed to do.
The Trump administration, John, is moving aggressively to dismantle President Biden's immigration legacy, and they are now in the process of terminating a process known as CH&V that was set up by the previous administration as a way to reduce illegal immigration at the U.S.-Mexico border by offering would-be migrants a legal and safe way to come here without the use of a smuggler and without the use of illegal entries into the U.S. About 500,000 people from Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, and Nicaragua entered the U.S. under that process, which required American sponsorships from people who were citizens or legal permanent residents here. And in the next 30 days...
So what's the point of following you as a leftist? To have a community of like-minded people that sometimes have fun, but other times are paying attention to what's going on, not only in the United States of America, but all around the world? What did you think the point was? What do you think I do here? What? I'm actually trying to figure out what you mean by this, like what you're talking about. I was under the impression this was a revolutionary vanguard training camp, that when you say trigger words, we're all going to lock in and become sleeper agents. Yeah, it is. It's true.
Their work permits and deportation protections will be lapsed and terminated by the Department of Homeland Security, which is warning that if these people do not voluntarily depart the country, John, they will be found, arrested, and deported from the country. In fact, the administration is saying that the people affected by this policy change should sign up to self-register on a smartphone app provided by the government and tell people that they will be departing the country.
Okay, tough to keep track of it all, but you've been keeping track, of course, of those Venezuelan migrants that have been sent to El Salvador. What more do we know about that group?
Well, not only have the deportations to El Salvador triggered this contentious legal battle here in the U.S., John, but also a debate about who was actually sent to that Central American country. The administration is saying that all the Venezuelan men it sent there, 238 Venezuelan nationals, are part of the notorious transnational gang known as Tren de Aragua. But we have spoken to relatives and lawyers of the deportees, and they are strongly refuting those claims, saying that their loved ones and clients have no criminal records in the U.S. or abroad, and that they are not affiliated with this vicious gang. And they have actually presented to us documents that do, in fact, confirm that many of these deportees do not have criminal records. I will say that some officials have said that some of them do have criminal records, so we should underscore that.
My husband may not be a legal American citizen, but he's a human being, and he has rights.
Only on Action News Jax, a Middleburg family begging for help after they claim that ICE officials are threatening the husband, who is an Indian national, with immediate deportation and criminal charges. I'm Tanika Hughes.
And I'm Ben Becker. Action News Jax Jake Stofan is live from the family's home in Middleburg. And Jake, after you started asking questions, they got a new message from ICE.
Well, that's right. Just within the last hour, I heard from the family's attorney that the husband has now been given until Saturday to purchase a plane ticket back to India and leave the country voluntarily. Now, this comes after the family says ICE officials came to their door this morning demanding the husband come out and threatening him with criminal charges and saying they would come back with a warrant when he refused.
I mean, that's good that they didn't open the door. That's That's what you're supposed to do.
I cannot leave my kids and my wife here. I can't.
Tapan Purohit and his wife, Ashley Kennedy Purohit, feel they're living a nightmare. Tapan came to America on a J-1 visa in 2011. It expired in 2013. Last year, he married Ashley, and they filed an I-130 marriage petition in hopes of regaining his legal status.
I prayed so hard that God would send me a good, kind, loving man that would finally be that piece that was missing in our lives, and he did.
Things took a turn last December when Tapan was arrested and charged with resisting an officer without violence that was ultimately dropped. But over the next few months, he was ordered by ICE to purchase a plane ticket for removal, which he did. According to the family's attorney, they filed a series of emergency motions, hoping to delay his removal to give time for the marriage petition to be processed. His motion to delay his deportation was denied on March 11th, but 2 of those other motions are still pending.
At that point, our attorneys had told us to go ahead and cancel the plane tickets, that we had motions filed so that we should have time to be able to continue to petition and pursue.
But according to the family, ICE officials arrived at their home this morning demanding Tapan come outside to be taken into ICE custody for deportation. He did not. The family claims ICE officials told them they'd return with a warrant and charged Tapan with failure to comply with supervised release.
And at that point, they can kick our door down and come in front of my children and take my husband in front of them.
Ashley argues her husband still has a right for the motions to be heard. Tapan and Ashley run a local business and argue they're good, hardworking Americans, not criminals. But they claim throughout this process, they've been treated as less than human by ICE officials.
I said, my wife is pregnant, sir, so he said, oh, that's not your kid, that's her kid.
Ashley says she feels like this sudden rush is being driven by a numbers game intended to fulfill a political agenda rather than ensure public safety.
It's just
no
another
shit.
check on the box.
I mean,
we deported 1,001.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. There's no, it's also because it's built on a lie. It's built on a lie. There's no massive amounts of undocumented migrants that are responsible for incredible amounts of violent action and criminal behavior. It's just made up.
People today, and Tapan gets to be that 1,001.
And yes, it's not necessarily just a lie that the Republicans told. It's one that the Democrats also played along with, refused to fight against, refused to combat. And here we are. Oh, I hate this.
Now, the family's attorney tells me she's holding out hope those 2 outstanding.
Yeah, this is how all the Indians will be dealt with when they're done with the Muslims. The Indian nationalists, BJP, and Hindutva think they're a part of the in-group. They're not. And you know who is also not a part of the in-group, even though they're much more firmly a part of the in-group than Indians are right now? Jews. They are eventually going to go after Jews too. Okay? They're already going after Jews that are anti-Zionist, but they'll go after all Jews eventually. You're a fucking idiot if you're a Jewish American and you're like, nah, dude, Israel, yeah, Am Israel Chai. Yeah, these guys are actually doing the right thing by going after these naysayers, these Arabs, these pro-Palestinian protesters. You're a fucking dumbass. You're basically literally clapping like a seal for your own demise in the exact same way that it happened once during the fucking Holocaust and many times over before then in pogroms. You're so fucking stupid. No, as a Jew, I say, is Israel high? Okay. Ay, ay, ay.
Emergency motions that are currently sitting.
And we're taking.
It's ironic because a lot of the anti-Semitic sentiment is directly caused by the Trump administration coming out and basically behaving in the way that David Duke says the American government operates as. Americans are stupid, but even they recognize when the fucking Trump administration is saying Shalom Mahmoud, okay, as they're deporting someone for exercising free speech, you're definitely creating a lot of resentment. Jews should be the first people to recognize how dangerous that kind of association is. It is shocking how fucking short-sighted Zionist Jews are in this country. It is literally it is so alarming that they don't understand what the fuck is up right now.
Taking you behind the scenes of the complicated immigration process here in the U.S.
Well, it's left one man in legal limbo after he was brought to the U.S. from Liberia when he was just 2 years old. Rodney Taylor has lived in Georgia for decades, applying for citizenship only to be denied. Well, recently, ICE arrested him, and right now he's facing deportation.
11 Alive's Caitlin Ross is uncovering the difficulties navigating the immigration system, even as journalists seeking answers about this case.
It's easy to talk to Rodney Taylor.
I'm a people person, so I love dealing with people, meeting people every day, making them look good.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, deport that guy to Liberia. He's definitely Liberian. Dude's been in here since the age of 2, man. The fuck are we doing? Like, that is an American, okay? That is an American through and through, okay? What are we doing?
We met Rodney trying to help people who sit in his chair through a program where barbers talk to clients about...
Oh, I don't get it. I thought that they were arresting rugged criminals. What's happening? This doesn't seem like they're arresting and deporting rugged criminals. You know, what's that about? I'm shocked. I'm shocked to find out that we are not actually fucking deporting serious criminals and instead deporting guys like this.
Lung cancer screenings. Rodney told us making those connections comes easy.
Once they feel comfortable in their surroundings and know what type of person you are, they feel more comfortable to open up to you.
It's what's happening to him now that he says is so hard to connect.
All right, we're trying this again. Okay, so working? Rodney!
Hey!
Oh my gosh, we finally connected!
He was arrested by ICE and is now not behind his chair, but behind bars.
It's a life-or-death situation.
To understand, we have to go back to 1980 when Rodney's mother brought him to the U.S. from Liberia. He was 2. Born with clubbed hands and feet, she brought Rodney here for amputation surgeries under a medical visa. He's lived here ever since, but his applications for citizenship have been denied.
I feel like I'm at my wit's end. You know, I rely on prayer.
That's because Rodney pled guilty to felony burglary charges when he was 16. 16 years later, the Georgia Parole Board pardoned that conviction.
Oh my God.
But the crime makes him ineligible for amnesty programs for minors. ICE officers cite the burglary case on his detention order now.
They're still trying to prosecute me for something I did 30 years ago as a child. It's hard to swallow.
Hard, but not uncommon, says immigration expert and attorney.
Wow, thank God they got this criminal off the streets, dude. Thank God. Truly sociopathic behavior. New, a Time photojournalist was on hand in El Salvador as prison guards beat a man who's likely to be Andre, a gay Venezuelan barber / makeup artist who was seemingly falsely accused of being a gang member and renditioned by the Trump administration with literally no due process. One young man sobbed when a guard pushed him to the floor. He said, "I'm not a gang member. I'm gay. I'm a barber." I believed him. He began to whimper as his head was roughly shaved, folding his hands in prayer as his hair fell. He asked for his mother and cried as he was slapped again. Earlier today, the media released a list of names of people from Venezuela that were forcibly removed by the United States to an El Salvador mega prison. Our client, Andre, was one of them. Yeah. The full story is here. These are first-hand accounts from an American photojournalist on the scene. Remember, the Trump admin has offered zero evidence for any gang ties to any of these people and refused to permit them any way to prove their innocence. Yeah, it's there. This is happening already. This is what I mean when I say fascism is here. Okay, we have already dipped our toes in the waters. We are pushing our whole body into it. This administration will eventually do these exact same acts of cruelty to you and a loved one.
Charles Cook
shows you how complicated immigration law is. Somebody who's been pardoned by the state, been forgiven, moved on with his life. Now, decades later, ICE comes along and says, hey, we're going to arrest you and deport you to a country you don't know.
The latest Pew Research poll shows 59% of Americans approve of increased efforts to deport people who are undocumented. Over the last several weeks, 11 Alive has reported on the uptick in ICE arrests in metro Atlanta and across the country under President Trump's administration. ICE data shows that includes immigrants with criminal records, but also a 221% increase in immigrants without criminal records.
The reality is our laws have not changed. Our laws haven't changed in 30 years. What's changed is how they're...
By the way, most of the people that have a criminal record, that have like actually violent crimes on their record, are people that are already in prison. They're deporting people from prison to pad the stats. They're also deporting people with minor criminal records, like the dude who got his fucking record expunged from when he got arrested for aggravated assault or burglary at the age of 16. He's 46 years old. So there are people whose records are being expunged after the fact, and they still are hitting them to pad the stats with 50% of the people that we're apprehending are criminals. And then you look through individuals and the crimes that they've committed, and it's all like minor offenses, like trespass. Dudes are getting deported for trespassing after living here for 15, 20, 30 years. Think about that. They're not arresting, apprehending, and detaining like rapists and murderers. And even then, I don't believe that we should be fucking deporting rapists and murderers anyway. We should be prosecuting them to the full extent of the law. Like, what do you mean? The fuck? I don't want them to get a free trip back home.
Enforced.
We talked to a spokesman from ICE who told us the removal case against Rodney is moving forward because they do not accept the type of pardon he received.
Oh, great.
The Department of Justice told us it has no record of Rodney's case and won't until he's charged. But 3 months after his arrest, that still hasn't happened. Behind bars, Rodney is trying to stay positive, helping other detainees get ready for their court dates.
They allow me to cut hair, do what I do, pass the time.
He's hoping to get back behind the chair for good.
As long as I feel like I'm helping somebody, I feel good.
Reporting in Tucker, Caitlin Ross, 11 Alive News.
And immigration officers told Rodney he would be deported 3 months after he was arrested. And so that would be this week. But he says he still has not had a court date. We'll keep you posted, though.
Jasmine Mooney is...
Oh, yeah. This was a Canadian citizen that was in 12-day detention by ICE. This is another insane story. And it's a white lady, I think, so of Canadian background. So maybe this is what'll get the liberals on board, Oh, yeah.
Is a Canadian citizen who had a work visa, no criminal record, and had been traveling back and forth between Canada and California without any complications until she says she was suddenly detained without explanation at the San Diego border when she tried to reapply for a new visa. Writing in The Guardian, quote, "I was taken to a tiny freezing cement cell with bright fluorescent lights and a toilet. There were 5 other women lying on their mats with aluminum sheets wrapped over them, looking like dead bodies. The guard locked the door behind me. For 2 days, we remained in that cell, only leaving briefly for food. The lights never told what time it was, and no one answered our questions. No one in the cell spoke English, so I either tried to sleep or meditate to keep from having a mental breakdown, I didn't trust the food, so I fasted, assuming I wouldn't be there long." She added, quote, "I was told to shower, given a jail uniform, fingerprinted, and interviewed. I begged for information. How long will I be here? I don't know your case," the man said. "Could be days, could be weeks. But I'm telling you right now, you need to mentally prepare yourself for months." Ultimately, Mooney says she spent 12 days in detention before she was finally allowed to book herself a flight back home to Canada. Joining us now, Jasmine Mooney. I was blown away by what you wrote in The Guardian. Explain what happened.
I mean, I'm still processing what happened. I got out and it really feels like a dream or a nightmare, but I still really don't know how I ended up there. But now I am really trying to use my voice to tell people what's going on, because I really don't think a lot of people know what's going on in there.
Why weren't you allowed to book yourself a flight back home?
I have no idea. I assume that if there were a denial with my visa, I would just book myself a flight and head back home. Apparently, because I had one denial before and then my other visa was voided. So for some reason, they said that they had to send me back to Canada. And I was literally booking my own flight to go home. And then that's when I was taken. And then I was in there for 12 days and not a single person talked to me the entire time that I was in there about my case.
Why do you think you were not given the opportunity? Do you feel like you were being used to send a message to others?
You know, I've been trying to come up with every explanation that I can, and I truly don't know. I was in there, I met around 200 other women who, none of us had a criminal record. Everyone's story was different, a lot of the same. A lot of women, I believe, should not be in there. And what I found is the issue wasn't about getting deported. A lot of women admitted that they overstayed their visas. It's just what the issue that they have is the process of getting out of there. It is next to impossible. There is no communication. You do not have an officer to talk to. You can't contact your lawyers or your friends or your family. I was transferred twice in 2 weeks, which is an awful experience. There were girls in there who had been transferred 8 times in a couple weeks. So the whole system just felt super rigged to keep us in there. That's what it felt like.
Well, because you write, this is an interesting part of the article. You say companies like CoreCivic and GEO Group receive government funding based on the number of people they detain, which is why they lobby for stricter immigration policies. It's a lucrative business. CoreCivic made over $560 million from ICE contracts in a single year. In 2024, GEO Group made more than $763 million.
Yeah, they were salivating at Trump's electoral victory. I played their report, their like quarterly earnings report, and how excited they were at the new election. The GEO Group is tasked and ready to take advantage of the new wave of mass deportations and mass arrests and set up new detention centers. Insane.
Canadian Airlines are taking away.
Here's at least a little bit of a silver lining on all of this. Canadians, stand strong. We are with you.
Flights to popular U.S. cities. This after many Canadian vacationers apparently are avoiding the U.S. entirely. Asher Red joins us from the Atlanta International Airport. And Asher, the airlines say they're just following the demand.
Yeah, exactly. And some Canadian airlines are starting to shift their focus to Mexico and the Caribbean. That's where the airlines say that Canadians are starting to vacation instead of right here in the United States. And they've noticed that in the past few months. Now, the U.S. Travel Association says that Nevada and Florida rank among the most popular destinations for Canadian travelers. But starting this month, Air Canada is dialing back service to those states as well as to Arizona. In the latest investors meeting, Air Canada said that it was adding more routes to Canadian leisure destinations instead. Other American airlines, or Canadian airlines rather, like Porter, have stopped advertising some American destinations entirely. A Porter spokesperson says in a statement, quote, "We are mindful of the overall sentiment of travelers, and it's because of this that we've decided to adjust our marketing and emphasize Canadian destinations for the time being," end quote. And according to the Travel Association, Canadians visit America more than travelers from any other country, with 20.4 million visits just last year. And the association says that Canadians spent $20.5 billion in the U.S. last year, supporting 104.
Why should you come here? This place fucking sucks. Why should you come here and also risk your safety and security? You could get fucking hassled by a high school graduate with an inferiority complex who's going to fucking big dog you and possibly detain you permanently. Fuck this country, okay? Don't come here. And by the way, this is the same energy that Israelis should be having towards people that want to implement boycott, divestment, and sanctions on the fucking apartheid state that is currently doing a genocide. And if Israelis don't have that sort of energy, then, you know, they're not with it. They're not with the shits. That's it.
40,000 American jobs.
Hasan, are you safe from deportation? For the time being, yes. Because I'm an American citizen. I was born here. I know my haters will hate that, but that is the case.
Decline in revenue could have major impacts on Americans. Now, Flight Center, a travel agency with an office in Toronto, says that Canadians are in the middle of one of the busiest travel periods of the year.
This did pick up in February, where we saw actually a 40% decrease in leisure bookings to the U.S. And that just means...
What's the difference between these recent deportations and the ones during the Biden admin? I'll tell you. The Biden administration still was very rigid and also deported a shit ton of people. And it was completely unacceptable. This is an expansion on the previous administration, as the Republicans tend to move the country rightward. They've eliminated due process, and they're going after people with no criminal background whatsoever. They're just trying to grab as many people as possible, while they're also actively trying to remove legal permanent residence and take away their citizenship, take away their legal permanent residency status.
New bookings were down 40%. Over a 3-month period leading up to February, we did see a 20% increase in cancellations of pre-existing trips to the U.S. from Canada. And in fact, Canadians were rebooking for destinations like the Caribbean and Mexico.
And according to FlightAware, Canadian flights coming into New York's JFK airport saw a 19% decline in just last month. The rest of the United States dealt with a 5% decline in incoming Canadian traffic. Live at the Atlanta International Airport, Fox 13 News.
With a president in the White House who most Americans came to know through a reality TV show, it is somehow fitting that one of the issues that Donald Trump obsesses over, undocumented immigrants, has been packaged into reality-style TV.
Almost 4 a.m. and we are now rolling.
I think it's really important for Trump's governing style to have these things sort of televised. For him, if these things don't happen on TV, are they actually happening?
This morning, federal agents are intensifying the Trump administration's promise of mass deportations of undocumented immigrants.
The border represents a geographic site where the aspirations, the delusions, the anxieties, and the mythical expressions of the United States are enacted.
As war with terror organizations are happening all over the world, and they have operatives on our borders that are ramping up unlike ever before.
Much of what presidential administrations have done for years is enact a sort of border theater, which is rooted in violence. It is through those images, it is through the confrontations, manufactured in some instances, that the United States defines its sense of citizenship for the people.
Now, the president is dramatically expanding the powers of federal agencies to help with mass deportations.
He knows the power of this thing right here, the camera. When you take the camera, that's a big weapon nowadays, whether it's citizen journalism, whether it's a well-known company, or if...
I'm sorry, what? They interviewed Patrick Bet-David, Al Jazeera, The Listening Post, interviewed Mr. Valuetainment for this? What the fuck?
The power of this thing right here, the camera. When you take the camera, that's a big weapon nowadays, whether it's citizen journalism, whether it's a well-known company, or if it's the U.S. government trying to go out there showing the raids that this is what we're doing, this is what we're working on behind closed doors. I love the fact that they're doing it, to be honest with you. I love the fact that we're able to see it.
That kind of enthusiasm for seeing people hounded and humiliated on TV appears to be the point.
This is the police. You have a warrant. Come out with your hands up.
The televised raids are a show of force, choreographed to intimidate undocumented immigrants. And while those tactics form part of Donald Trump's long-promised mass deportation plan, they're not new. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, or ICE, has been turning its operations into TV content since the early 2000s and the so-called War on Terror. Journalists are often invited to tag along with officers enforcing the policy in what are known as ride-alongs.
I did that 20 years ago. After 9/11, during the Bush administration, reporters would join federal agents while they conducted raids. That was part of a concerted visual propaganda machine that the Bush administration mounted to shape public opinion. It shored up support for the quote-unquote war on terror that resulted in the deaths of millions of people, and it shored up support for massive border buildup, border wall construction, and the deployment of troops.
Fast forward a decade to Donald Trump's first term in office, and immigration enforcement had become a PR disaster. The images and sounds of crying children separated from their parents earned the administration reams of bad press. Trump officials learned a lesson that sometimes hardline policies require softer packaging. So this time round, the administration has used some popular media personalities, like daytime TV host Dr. Phil.
We're here to tell your story and have your back. So we're getting the word out that you're out there taking down the bad guy.
Dr. Phil is one of a slew of media figures and journalists.
Bloodless fucking ghouls, dude. Monsters. I wonder if the listening post will put a clip of Asmongold saying that he wanted to dress up as Ash Ketchum and go on a ride along. You know, because it's just entertainment. People's lives are fucking being ruined. People who are not criminals, by the way. Yeah. Fuck around and find out, I say. As I, laugh at the child cancer kid whose parents are about to be deported, who've been fucking living here for 20 goddamn years. And the child who has cancer is 10 years old and is an American citizen, but she has to go and be deported alongside their fucking family members. Yeah, I don't care. Shouldn't have been here. Yeah.
Who've been granted first-hand access to ICE's made-for-TV immigration raids.
These so-called journalists riding around with the police on a ride-along, it's like take your kid to work day.
For 2 days, News Nation was given the unique privilege of riding along with this trained team of officers.
One can only sort of have one perception after this. Black and brown people are running around, and these are the good guys, mostly white guys, going around and arresting them and putting them in prisons. And so it is not journalism.
It's important to remember when we're looking at reports in which journalists are on ride-alongs.
We're now heading to the northwest part of the city.
The viewers are seeing whether it's
Token Yemeni, genuinely asking why you didn't push AOC and Bernie on Gaza and how they vote. I love you, but I don't understand why not. I don't know, maybe because I have 5 minutes with AOC and 10 with Bernie before they went up on stage. Did you see how the interview took 9 minutes and 53 seconds to conduct? How am I supposed to get anything across in that situation?
Whether it be the border, whether it be any...
I also did start the conversation about Gaza, specifically from the perspective of defending First Amendment rights.
Any neighborhood through the eyes of federal agents. And therefore, journalists become the amplifiers of their perspective. So when journalists, quote unquote, embed, we are telling the story from a particular point of view.
In the United States, not having the right documents isn't actually a criminal offense. It's a civil one. But you'd never know that from the language used by politicians and journalists.
If you're here illegally, get ready to leave.
The goal should be to deport
every illegal in this country that we can find.
If you're here illegally, we're going to hunt you down and we're going to deport your ass.
As successive administrations have hardened their approach to immigration, the packaging of that news for public consumption has become more and more sensationalistic.
Because you got criminal aliens that are on the street that have weapons, that have grenades, that have all type of things.
In Trump Term 2, the government provides news outlets with not just the drama of the raids, but a new TV-friendly protagonist. Homeland Security Kristi Noem, who joins in on the action, complete with branded body armor.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem came along for the raid.
How many of these do you expect you'll witness as secretary?
I hope a lot.
One of the most important things the Trump administration is doing is the fact that they're televising their raids. And the reason why this...
Why is Patrick Bet-David talking about this? Like, I'm so confused. They couldn't find another guy. Like, they had to find a guy who's like pro-Trump. This is like genuinely shocking to me.
This is very important is because that's what their voters wanted. They were concerned about the 10 to 15 million illegal immigrants that came across the border. And so their job is to say, hey, we're doing our job. It's televised. Here's the camera. This is what we got going on.
You want cameras at these events, don't you? And some would say you want this spectacle to be filmed.
It's not a spectacle. This is our nation's law enforcement judicial process.
It's such a great publicity stunt to scare the crap out of the people that are here illegally, specifically the ones that are criminals.
Televised events, raids, are so important to defining an enemy. Someone who cannot speak for themselves, someone for whom we have little to no information, imagery that is meant to communicate to people where their places, and in some instances that they have no rights, and ultimately nothing can be done to help you.
Social media is where ICE showcases the numerous quote-unquote criminals they've apprehended. In most cases, the agency makes no distinction between those suspected of a crime and those who've actually been found guilty of criminal activity. However, data released by ICE paints a different picture. It shows that the surge in arrests of undocumented immigrants largely targets people without criminal convictions or criminal charges. And yet, the show goes on. In February, the White House tweeted a video. Scenes from the deportation of immigrants. It was ugly and gratuitous. But for Trump supporters, it serves as evidence that they're getting exactly what they voted for.
I don't mind imposing some fear in criminals that came here illegally and are hurting citizens. Our job is to make sure people who live here legally are safe. So if we can make an example of them and show clips like that, I'm not surprised that they're doing that. I actually like it. And if it makes some people uncomfortable, I like it even more. Americans voted on November 5th, 2024, and they wanted America to be safer, and that's exactly what this administration
Yeah, I
is.
feel so much safer with this image juxtaposed over Patrick Bet-David, resident expert on growing fascist movements in the United States of America. I feel so safe, dude. When I think about safety, I think like Nazi Germany, you know? I think Nazi Germany style Gestapo raid, suspecting people who've been living here for 10, 20, 30 fucking years, who haven't really done anything wrong. Amazing.